Good evening. You're listening to live to the Extreme Movie Show. I am your host, Rob. I'm broadcasting to you from the 5-acre palatial estate of the Extreme Movie Show grounds, where Max and Daisy, my German Shepherd, Czechoslovakian short-haired Reds, working line, patrol the grounds, keep us safe. And what's different is that I'm actually got a microphone here, even though you can't see me. Normally, I would be in Extreme Studios with RDV on from the Great Midwest joining me, because RDV, I have in here on this ground, so this beautiful 82-degree day, a matchup called Movie Thunderdome, where we have Bloodsport and Die Hard in tonight's 1988 matchup. Two movies enter and one leaves, and I'm looking at this, and it's a bloody mess, no pun intended here. But explain to people what's going on here with this, why we've got these two entrances, and then let's get going when we talk about the good and then the bad.
First of all,
and the tiebreaker.
It's a nice, cool 38-degree weather day right now by me. And I wanted something.
But is your dome made out of cheese, sir?
No.
Okay.
It's made out of plastic, so we all suffocate. Anyway, yeah. So basically, we're looking for two movies, and there's a lot of movies. The other line about suggested that Rob is like, well, we can always do Land Before Time. I forget what the other one was, but it was like Land Before Time by something else. And I was like, both are like were tragic movies, traumatizing as a kid. You know, everybody brings up Simba, with his father dying. Land Before Time, the mother died. I was like, ugh. 5-year-old me watching that. But anyway, no, we're here to talk about Die Hard and Bloodsport. Because immediately when it comes to 1988, the first thing my mind went to was Die Hard. Same with Rob's. I was like, okay, what's going to go against Die Hard? Because that was the big movie. But I was like, holy shit, Bloodsport. Like, we have to do the Frank Ducks. Or whatever you want to call it. Or is that, I always get confused.
Because it's French.
Yes. Is it Kickboxer Frank Duck or is it Bloodsport Frank Ducks? I think it's Bloodsport. Yeah. It's like, I always get those two, the character names mixed up because they're so similar of a movie. But man, Jean-Claude Van Damme is just phenomenal in this. We always get the clip where he's blind, and then he's like, Die Hard's always, ho ho ho, and now I have a machine gun, or Hans Gruber falling from it. Both, I imagine, I couldn't imagine Bloodsport being really big in the movie theaters. But I mean, as far as Bruce Willis, Die Hard, I would say that probably stole like the box office. But then again, I would have to take a look at the top 10. I don't give a crap about the top 10 box office numbers. Me alone, being 38, 39 movies I've seen, Die Hard coming out in the theater, I would have thought that would have blown anything else. Any of the freaking dramas. Who cares the crap's about was it broadcast news or whatever? Right. Whatever came out in the 80s. Because that was like, holy crap, you got this guy running through a building. He's just got the little tank top on, the little white beater tank top, and then he's got, he's got no shoes because, the terrorists taking over the building, in Los Angeles, and he's forced to basically crawl through vents, almost get hit by an elevator, and and then he's got to deal with, terrorists, save people. It's tense, He's trying to get a hold of like the cops, but they don't believe him at first, So then he basically, ends up throwing a chair through the window. Mm-hmm. It's like I said, you got the dad from Family Matters in here plays the cop. It's just high intense explosions, him swinging through out a window, swinging back in. It's just phenomenal. It was so great that even The Rock said, you know what? I'm gonna make my own, and it sucks because only there is one Die Hard, and that's Bruce Willis. Some could say that the second one captured the feeling of the first one. It's good, but it's not Die Hard.
Bloodsport, let me set the stage for when they came out. You're right. Die Hard, everybody went and saw it. They're like, man, this is a great film. It's a lot of fun. It's action-packed. And you went there and you're like, hell yeah, it is. And of course, we're in 1988. We're talking about having already seen Commando for a couple years. The Arnold catalog's really in full effect now. You're starting to see some martial arts films change a little bit with, instead of Chuck Norris doing martial arts, he's doing a little bit more of the action sort of stuff. We see Stallone doing his thing. So again, even though I've mentioned here on the Extreme Movie Show, an 80s based channel that we branch out in all directions and compare it, is it definitely there was a lot of leveling off of cutesy type safe films over the past couple years, big budget ones, and that's great and that's fine. Die Hard definitely fits the bill, and it's one of those films that everybody just thinks is kind of cool, kind of hip. It's in a building, so it's a little bit of a different situation. Now, unlike say the Warriors or some Western movies that have this thing where everybody's put together like in a bank or a sheriff's office, and they have to fight against the outsiders coming in, which
Yeah.
John Carpenter would do a lot. You've got something here where it's kind of like it, but in a building, and it is cool because skyscrapers in the '80s, represented who's got the tallest buildings. Is it the Sears Tower? Is it New
Hmm.
York City? LA's definitely got their own, and so there was something of '80s styles about showing it too. And just like Miami Vice, the TV show that you've been watching several seasons in,
Yeah.
it's great how they filmed the buildings near. You're like, man, that's fucking cool looking. It's sexy. It's tropical.
It's
Every
also
city has
scary.
their own like identity based off their buildings, right? That is so cool. So you're absolutely right. Die Hard, it was a tremendous film. Everybody loves it. Bloodsport, people are like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah. Um, I'd say the video game nerds probably want to stop Bloodsport because they're like, oh, Street Fighter, like the fighting games they had out in Nintendo's,
And
and
that kind of came from this. And
yeah,
that's the whole thing is
yeah.
Bloodsport was a movie that nobody knew anything about. Some people kind of knew who Bolo Young was a little bit, but you see this really gorgeous, good-looking guy who's tailor-made to be a superhero. His body, his physique, we're talking Jean-Claude
Hmm.
Van Damme here, and his style was a little different. He was a pretty boy that normally in the '80s, you'd want to kill him, massacre, and rough up his face because he's smooth and he's just charming and he's kind of dopey, innocent in a way and all that. And he's a moralistic guy, which back then, again, you could get beat up for that kind of stuff. But he kind of wins you over in a very simplified kind of movie that would be very safe for a young kid to watch. Obviously, he was in, breaking in the background, dancing, and some other things that
Well,
we've talked about, but he wasn't a name at this point in
he
terms
can
of
only
movies.
you can only go up from Jim Cotta, right? Right.
People, even though Jim Conner was trash and a goof thing, it was a canon
Yeah.
film, and people liked it. And you know what? It was a little unique, right? Right. I mean,
Yes.
and they had a legit guy in there, so the guy's
This
acrobatics look real. Same
this
thing
was
with here. You see John Claude Van Damme, and he's like doing the splits and he's doing all this stuff. But then as a guy, you go, damn, he does have a nice body, and it's a different kind of body or physique than a hulking bodybuilder one like
it's
Arnold. You know what I mean?
yeah. It's the guy from No Retreat Nor Surrender. He's the villain in that. Now he's gonna be the hero, and then you're going against other fighters getting together. Like before Mortal Kombat and all them, this was it. The Warriors, the elite Warriors get together and fight, and it's just hidden like like a tournament, and like that sounds dope to me. Like that sounds awesome. Best the best. Pretty much. All the movies that this movie spawned. Because it was such a good hit. Big hit. But I feel like it became more of a cult classic because I don't feel like this is a movie, and I don't know. I haven't looked at the box office, but I feel like this Bloodsport, no one really went to see it. It was word
That's
of
not
mouth.
true, actually, because what happened is it's a canon film, I believe, and word of mouth got around about it. Hey, there's this new guy. He's kind of like what people would say. Hey, there's this new guy in this movie called Bloodsport. It's kind of cool. It's martial arts, and so there was definitely an audience of people like myself that grew up on martial arts films and said, "Wait a minute, where's the Chuck Norris martial arts film?" Well, he was an older guy. He was like in his 40s, I think, at this point. Now all of a sudden, you're getting like the second wave of martial arts because you would have Steven Seagal. Of course, you might be interested in like Jet Li or other people across the pond, if you will, in these types of films. So, and of course, the ninja craze is full on. So, all these canon type films and other things too. You're like, okay, there's still a market for martial arts in hand to hand combat, not just guns and explosions, which Die Hard pretty much is. And so, when Bloodsport came out, it was actually kind of different. It was a different setting. It looked very pretty. It was a micro budget film. It was only like $1 million, $2 million to produce it, I think, but
Yeah,
it made like 50
50
million.
million.
It
Yeah.
crushed it. And so it was a word of mouth kind of move. And I think it came out in the summer, if I remember correctly. And some remember people saying, hey, if you get a chance, check this movie out. It's actually pretty good.
February.
Okay. So in the
So-
springtime. Yeah. But Bloodsport, people definitely, it hung around because people, that word of mouth, it got around. And you're like, okay, it was attractive, the newness of it, right? It was a nice new shiny object kind of thing, and it was definitely worth watching. And when you consider the movies that were there in 1988, like we will be doing Sunday night here when we talk about 20 films, you're going to see that this stands out because there's very few of them. So there's definitely these uniqueness that has that Die Hard, even though it's a great film, you've got a situation where like, okay, you've seen explosions, you've seen gunplay, you've seen these kind of shootouts things. But it's cool, right? So
Yeah.
I like the fact that when we were trying to figure out matchups, we're like, man, nothing major seems like it has a chance against Die
So
Hard. And then you
I'm
brought
look
up Bloodsport. I thought that's a nice
yeah,
pick.
yeah. I'm looking at Bloodsport. It says on January 89, the Los Angeles Times reported that the U.S. box office gross was 11.7 million against a budget of 2.3 million. By August 1989, it was reported that it pulled in 50 million.
Yeah.
So basically, it took a little while, but eventually, by the end of the year, it was like the most talked about movie, at least other than, I mean, as far as martial arts go.
Right.
Because you had martial arts, you had Street Fighter and all this stuff, the Tuami or Toei, whatever it's called, the one that was going over in Japan stuff, and Hong Kong. You had all those movies, coming over, like maybe like, but not really in. I don't think they might have been in theater. I mean, I mentioned some were probably in theater, but like they were like the late night shows or whatever. But that was the first American made that, at least I think, as far as with Jean-Claude Van Damme. You had the Chuck Norris ones, but like you said, this wasn't Chuck, because you're like, wait, Chuck Norris isn't doing a karate movie. Who's this person?
Yeah.
You also had American Ninja the year before that.
Right.
Yeah, so they're starting to see a lot more like American produced, as far as with that weren't Chuck Norris, and I like Chuck Norris, but I think Bloodsport's better than half his roster as far as his movies.
It's definitely a different uniqueness to it, and we've talked about that when we reviewed a lot of the Chuck Norris catalog, starting in order, launching the Extreme Movie Show 5+ years ago, as well as some other guys.
Yeah,
And so you can see like the growth and development, which is interesting. So I think there was this also newness factor to Jean-Claude, where you're looking at him, you're like, damn it, that's a good looking physique. That's not a skinny little, Asian guy. This is a legit guy. And then Bolo Young was a legit bodybuilder, weighing well over 200 pounds at like 5'7", 5'8". So he looks jacked as fuck. And he just was terrifying in this. So let's kind of continue with talking about what's good with Bloodsport, and then we'll go back to Die Hard, talk what's good, and then we'll reverse it and talk about what's bad before we get into the final round. But Bloodsport,
well, yeah,
the setting is unique. It tells a little bit of a story that kind of pseudo real and all that too, about who's the best. And the thing about it that we've mentioned before, even reviewing some one-off older martial arts films, whether it's the Golden Harvest or the other types, this you get like different styles and you get different physiques. So again, it's a nice little matchup. You get to see a taste of everything here at the end in the final battle. That's attractive enough to go, okay, what are they going to show at me? How are they going to present it? And it's hand to hand. It's not really a weapons based thing. So it's got a lot of pluses going forward to it. I think the soundtrack's tolerable.
yeah,
And I say it's a very innocent kind of film in a way. I know it's bloody and it's violent and all that, but not in the way
yeah,
that we would think the movies currently were at the time.
yeah. I mean, it's a story of it's real story or no, but you decide. But Frank Dux, army soldier, basically went AWOL because he wanted to compete in the tournaments. He runs into what was his name? Donald Gibb, his
Hmm.
character, who you recognize him as Booger, or not Booger, but Ogre from
Right.
Revenge of the Nerds. Pops in there, and he's playing a video game. I believe he was playing Street Fighter, or not Street
Maybe
Fighter, or
something like that.
no, Double
It's an
Dragons.
Easter egg.
It was Double Dragons. That's what it was. He was playing
Right.
something like that. Yeah. Dude, like I said, Jean-Claude Van Damme, good-looking dude, great physique. Younger than Chuck Norris too. So again, he's a much younger guy. He's one of the more charming. He's got that little personality. He can do a little dancing.
Hmm.
Then he's just, he's got that accent again. Like I said, I talk about Highlander, that French accent or whatever Belgium accent that.
If you had an accent in
Yeah.
the 80s, you're automatically
Oh,
sexy.
yes. So he's the muscle from Brussels coming
That's
in
right.
here and going up against this bad guy who looks like he stepped out of like Mortal Kombat. Like he's just like this powerful guy. You see him, he's kicking on me like on the cover there, and holy crap, it's just fun. It's 80s music. He meets the girl down there. She's a reporter covering it, trying to cover it. Blonde. And then he gets a girl, get a little sex scene there, and then he goes kick ass. And then and then he also humiliates the two CIA agents that are trying to bring him back in. It is fun, man.
I will tell you, when he does the splits, people are
Yeah,
like, "What the fuck?" And that became a
no,
thing. I'm telling you,
yeah,
that was so
of
freaking
course.
cool. It made uh
It would,
graceful
it would,
flowing ballet movements from somebody who's jacked and made it cool. That did not exist before.
And of course, because of him, everybody knows Rob Van Dam does the splits,
Yeah.
just as like him, and that's why his name's Van Dam. Again,
Mhm.
So I always thought that was cool. I was like, oh my gosh, because then you had the other guys, other wrestlers are named after like not named, but like you had Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, who I'm the
Mhm.
bad guy who dressed like Seagal, had the toothpick, hair slicked back. I mean, there's a reason why they did this because these guys are popular. Um, I'm just glad there wasn't anybody who looked like Stallone in wrestling. But but anyway, no, dude, fancy footwork. Like I said, he's got that charm personality. He's Bond, but he kicks ass. In a sense.
This was a surprise movie. It was very refreshing. I will say this, I think one of the best parts about Bloodsport, it's very rewatchable.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
you know what's going to happen. It's interesting to me because again, you don't think about it for a very long time, and you're like, man, I got to watch it with some Bloodsport. Then when it's on, you kind of get sucked into it, and you're like, man, this is cool. This is a lot of fun. It hasn't lost anything
yeah.
over time. I'm not saying it
And
got better, but it certainly did not get worse.
well, also, look what Ed said. He's look at the pose on the poster. It's badass.
Yeah,
Both these movies had awesome posters.
yeah.
I mean, a movie that takes place in a skyscraper. Sign me up, bro. That's crazy. I want to watch
Take
it in
my money.
IMAX. I want to watch it in IMAX. You know,
Yeah.
you know. And then he said, like, it's martial arts, and it's popular martial arts. It's not just like the ones you got to go like a certain store and like, hey, you got this martial arts movie? Can you order it? I mean, import it in? Like no, this was like on American theaters stuff. So, and like I said, for most part, it was Chuck Norris that was doing all the karate movies. And you had Enter the Dragon, and we got a little bit of Bruce Lee and stuff.
Mhm.
But I mean, like bringing in Jean Claude Van Damme, he was it for me. Seagal was a joke. I never cared for Seagal. I was like, Seagal, get out of here, bro. It's like
I think Seagal's run there with several movies is actually tremendous and was an asset at the time. And I
it,
know we've
I,
reviewed a lot of his too, and we've had different
yeah,
opinions on it. But the fact that it was a different style and a different look, let's be honest, and he runs like a girl, we don't care. It was a different type of movie, versus this. And the fact that that existed, people were hopeful that there would be a few of them. But then, of course, we always talk about Jeff Speakman and as the
yes,
perfect weapon, and that didn't
yes,
go anywhere. But that was cool too. So there was this hope that okay, we're getting ready to go into the 90s. The movies are kind of getting sanitized here, but we'll still have some, mono e mono
uh,
ass kicking kind of stuff.
and like I said, like the only thing, and people don't get it. It's like when you can get like the reason I like kickboxer and stuff like that, or in Bloodsport, because there are people who actually know how to do the moves and they actually do it well. And like Jean Claude Van Damme wasn't slowing down his moves. Like that's why Jackie Chan hated working in America because they like nobody could keep up with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and when you actually get and when someone's able to get two fighters, and this just applies to wrestling too. I just watched a Will Ospreay match versus
Yes.
versus Takashi or Take a Shit, I would want to call him.
Take a sheet of. Yes.
uh, and you see how those guys sell to each other's moves and how fast they're going back and forth. That's fun. I mean, it might be choreography. I don't care, but so that's what really works for me with this. And then also with Lady Blood Fight, which was a remake of this.
I was just getting ready to bring up Amy
Yeah,
Johnson.
yeah, yeah.
Ninja
Amy
Wave.
Johnson said when you get two people go that fast, and it looks real, and like I said, and because these people actually know the moves now,
Yeah.
and like I said, nothing slow down like we watching. I hate the shit on Cobra Kai, but Cobra Kai when they go to fight, it's like and then sped up.
Well, they're all like 100 pounds, right? I mean,
Yeah, I know.
it takes 100. It takes 100 blows for a
So
negative bruise.
seeing this, it's just like oh my gosh, you see the flip he did off this guy, and just it's acrobats and this is kicking and stuff. And then when he finally does at the end, you see they always do that, the slow motion. And he just hits the guy. You see the sweat come off of him, the drool and stuff. I love that. Or when someone gets kicked in the face, you see the face go and you see the tooth fly or something like that, the blood.
Right.
I
Right.
love that. It really shows you how powerful these blows are. They slow them down. Like I said, I've always liked that in the movies.
Bolo Young was just he had that
He's a
crazy eye
monster,
look
man.
thing, and he is, but he's a
Yeah.
legit martial artist guy too. So I mean,
Yes.
he was like on a permanent bulk, and it's a nice, like I say, innocent kind of thing. You got your punches and this and that. It's not abhorrently violent or disgusting, despite all the heel tactics that Bolo
Well,
Young does it
it's
in the match
it's
because he's a bitch.
It's the underdog going up, and he fights against the superior, the most like their prize fighter, like the big Bull Young. He's like, and you watch him, he goes fights against friends. He's like, don't, no, no, no. It's the same thing we watched with Drago versus Creed, and
Mm-hmm.
he destroys him.
Mm-hmm.
I that's what makes it work for me too. Is that it's like the hero's like he suffers a loss, found love, and now he's got to defeat the bad guy at the end. And when he does it, we all cheer. It's a perfect formula.
Yeah, and you brought up Amy Johnson as the daughter of a very famous, I think he was a kickboxer at the time. And so she does a lot of moves, and she's somewhat petite, but she's a bit of a powerhouse there too. When you see her film, she gets a little crazy, and it's cool. One guy that we even mentioned, I think it was Retaliation, Universal Soldier 3 or 4 or something, or
Oh,
Regeneration. Scott Adkins is
yeah.
super popular. I marked out because I told everybody last year when we reviewed John Wick, the most recent one, that he played Killa with the teeth and all that. I see we have ourselves a proposition here. That was phenomenal, and he got his fight and he got his ass kicked. Scott Adkins is so tremendously acrobatic and athletic, but I think the new wave is a lot like professional wrestling is today, where it's a lot of acrobatics rather than heavy blows. And I think that that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's simply the way it is, and we can argue if it's good or bad, which really isn't the purpose of it. But with Jean-Claude, when you see stuff like it, yeah, there's a lot of slow motion, so you can see what's going on. You're not going to know the names of this particular type of kick or whatever. You're just seeing people, like you mentioned, react, even if it's slowed down or whatever, and they've got great physiques, and you see them tumbling, and there's a rhythm to it where boom, 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 pause, something happened. He gets blinded. And I got to tell you, one of the last best things about Jean-Claude's performance in
Mm-hmm.
here, besides looking great as hell, is you're going to tell me that no matter what your age is when you watch this movie, you don't want to sit there and act like you're being blind and do the side punch and do it in slow motion and get like that crazy faces.
Yeah.
It makes you want to flex and do all the kind of stuff and all that, right? Even Bolo Young, you don't get that when
Yeah.
everything's acrobatic. You're like, I don't want to act that out. So the fact
Yeah.
that happens in there, that's like, yeah, they got me. They suckered me in, right?
Well, the other one I wish you do more is Bruce Kahn. Remember Bruce Kahn from Revenger?
A bit.
Okay, okay. For those who know what Revenger is, it's a South Korean movie basically where this cop ends his wife and son or basically child are killed by this mobster. The mobster goes to this island prison, and so the cop wants revenge. So he basically gets himself arrested and sent to this prison so he can go kill the guy. Along the way, he meets some people. There's two warring sides of the island fighting
Yeah.
for survival, and he helps the good side, and take on the bad guys. Yeah, Revenger was a really good movie. Like I said, it's Bruce Kahn, and he's normally a stunt guy.
Yeah.
So I was like, come on, why aren't we having more people like Amy Johnson's and all the other stunt people? Why aren't they being like the main guys? Not all of them are bad looking. They have the charisma, and people's like, well, maybe they can't act. I think people just overlook them because because the studios would rather have the pretty people who can't do the stunts because I don't
Yeah.
know. But I imagine it come
There's
down
a
to just
difference. There really is, right? I mean, Amy
because
Johnson's certainly not ugly, right? I mean, and she
because
can do the
I,
moves.
the reason I think it is because Hollywood executives look at it's like, well, what if the person gets injured? Now we don't have it, and they're doing their own stunts. What are we going to do? The movie's scrap then. It's like they're all worried about what ifs.
Mhm.
But that's life though. It's like seriously, like
Yeah, and when we talked about Tony John, some of his films, and he was a small guy, there's certain aspects about the style that you
Tony
liked and
Jai
didn't
just
like.
runs across people.
Yeah, and I mean, it's
Yeah,
pretty interesting. I mean, and it definitely makes for a different style, if you will. But like just like you're talking about with Bruce Kahn, it's like some of them rely more on strikes and punches, some do different things, and it's sped up or this or that. And so there's a lot of different variety out there, and we've tried covering ones. We did an Indonesian film or two off that, so we definitely tried hitting that, and we always like to
yeah.
go back to it. But let's switch over to Die Hard and talk about the key things that we really like about that we think makes it a worthwhile film.
Die Hard is kind of like a comedy action film. Guy goes there, like he's gonna wreck his wife and children and basically move. His wife got a job in Los Angeles, and they're kind of on the ropes of his marriage. He's gonna go. He's a New York cop, and he doesn't want to leave. So eventually, he decides to go for Christmas. He's gonna go visit her. They're having a Christmas party at the Nakatomi Plaza Tower where she works. And while he's there, he's in the middle of he's gonna have a shower and like because they have like a suite there in the fourth Christmas party is inside the building. He's gonna take a shower. He's gonna stop, and he's just about to do that. Gunmen decide to basically take over the building. He's unable to get his shoes, and he's basically forced to crawl through vents and run barefoot and walk through broken glass just to take out this well Hans, this German terrorist, who's not what he clearly seems to be. Everybody thinks he's there, that he's keeping them hostage, but what really was they want was in the vault down below. It's all a
The old
distraction.
switcheroo.
Yes, I love it. So, and then of course you got the FBI agents, Johnson and Johnson, who are idiots. One of us
Supposed to be, yep.
yeah, like we got this, and John McClane's like basically he's like Chris was, he's like, you idiots. It's like, I hear the inside guys like, well, how do we know you're not, how do you not you're one of the terrorists? It's like, and that's honestly that's believable, and
Yeah.
sadly that happens. I mean, but because he's using the police frequency on the walkie talkies, that he took from one of the villains, and he's like, he's just trying to tell him, he's explaining how I am. He's my badger, look me up. He's like, he's like, you can't do. He's like, well, guess what? I can. I'm in here. You're not, basically. And he tells him not to do stuff. Of course, the things happen, explosions, people die. Meanwhile, the limo driver who drove him here, he's in the garage parking lot down below, just jamming. He's got the music blaring. He's oblivious to everything. It is fun. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
I
or
would
Mother
be lying
Trucker if you watch it on
say, well, yeah, I know, right? I will timestamp that. I would be lying if I wouldn't say that this obviously was very popular, but the main reason why it works to me is because at this time, Moonlighting was a very hot show, and I started to kind of rewatch season 1, which I haven't watched since the 80s in like 30, 40 years, and the thing that stands out to me is two things. One, the absolute amount of energy and quick-wittedness that that Bruce Willis brings to the role, and obviously you see some of it here in a very subdued kind of way, like he's controlling himself better in this film. That made you go, "Oh, this isn't David Addison, smart mouth, private eye. This is a different character, right?" I mean, he doesn't say a lot till things pick up. And then also, of course, from the show, you had Sybil Shepherd as a model who looks fantastic, and they got her in these great outfits because they tried dressing her like a 40s or 50s type of show. So it was kind of interesting, but it was kind of like an adult romantic thing because it's like a will they or won't they, and then it goes down the rails because apparently she was just a major diva behind the scenes, and Bruce Willis did all the work. And I know that in some recent things that we've talked about with Bruce Willis, some members of the Extreme Movie Show, and we have to say it, he's obviously got some kind of dementia or Parkinson's or something that's affecting his ability to be productive. And so that's life. I hate to say it and all that too, but when I look at him, I still see Die Hard, and I think everybody does. And I still think most people my age, the 80s people, see him as in Moonlighting. Not that he hasn't done a Last Boy Scout and other stuff that's been cool over the years too, but really when you take a look at it, that's what it comes down to. If you put somebody else in this role, I just don't know how it works, because he kind of makes it cool in his own way, which was different, right?
Yeah, he's believable. He's like, oh, why me? It's like pretty much, I'm gonna die. You're gonna die. Run, John, run, run. It's just the whole self narration. It's like it's I love it. It's action, humor, and like situation humor as well too. It's kind of like the reason why we were talking about RoboCop last week. RoboCop, same thing. There's violence, but there's also some humor in it too as well. And when you say like people see these, you see Die Hard. A lot of people see Fifth Element when they think of Bruce Willis, because his big movie, The Fifth Element, that came out in I believe it was the late 90s. I don't think it was 2000s, but I know it was like the mid or late 90s. That was his big hit. I mean, because he had some movies in between. He tried to do Hudson Hawk, and that's only famous because how bad it is. But as far as movies that are great, it's Die Hard, and it's The Fifth Element. Right. I can't think of another movie that he did that was good. I mean, Last Boy Scout was pretty cool. Last Man Standing.
Forgetting the big one.
Trying to think.
I See Dead People.
Oh, I think I think of First Date or whatever it was. Okay. Blind Date.
Blind Date nobody liked. Tell me they did it. Okay. Yeah, so Die Hard, it is one of those movies, but it's one of the last action movies of the '80s too, which I think gives it some extra appeal. And I know a lot of people have a hard on for Hans Gruber and the suits and all that, just because he was in that Harry Potter nonsense or whatever. That doesn't make Die Hard or him better in Die Hard, because I'm telling you, nobody really gave too much consideration for him being a bad guy, other than he didn't yell and scream and act like a Bond villain. Really, it was all about John McClane
Mhm.
beating up on some evil Euro trash guys. I mean, really, it's what it was. Nobody cared about him. I always loved the suit exchange. John Phillips, I have some myself. Okay, whatever. And he had an accent, so some people just thought he was better. Whatever. All right. Now, for round two, what we do is we talk about what doesn't work with these movies before we go to the quick round three, which is nitpicking the finer details to come up with a winner. Okay, we've had some split decisions, RDB. So let's go back to Bloodsport on what doesn't work.
This is the part I always hate because to me, I like these movies. If there's something to work, I wouldn't watch them.
Mhm.
Um, what doesn't work is rebooting either one of these, unless it's done respectfully. That thing being said, though, I'm lying a little bit because Lady Bloodflight did a reboot of this one. But as far as this goes, oh man, I can't think of one that doesn't work. There's nothing I hate about these movies. I love them both.
Well, I will say this, I'm not thinking of any of the sequels and all that, but one of the things that doesn't work that really, when this came out, even though we talked about what a massive underground hit this was, and not just because it's a canon film, although that certainly helped because they knew what to give people, is that even though you got this really gorgeous looking guy, I mean, he really is. He's just got a great physique and he's beautiful, but not in a feminine way. He's a guy that you look at and you're like, damn it, he's that one dude on the football team that actually is kind of cool, not a jerk off, and actually gets along with everybody. And it's rare, but once in a while you meet somebody like it, and you want to root for the guy. He's a natural face, right? A good guy.
Mm-hmm.
But what a lot of people said was this movie sucks. It's cliche. It's stupid looking. The fights aren't very good. It's not original at all. And what's surprising to me is people like crap like ET and all the safe nonsense, which really wasn't very good. No, seriously. And so people really, it became very apparent in the '80s that a lot of the people that were supposedly professional reviewers, whether it's on TV shows or, believe it or not, a lot of newspaper columns had done that for a long time, reviewing movies coming out. A lot of them would shit on this kind of a movie. One, because it's a cheap, low budget movie, and two, because if they didn't know somebody and they weren't from the theater or something, that automatically they would suck. Or if they didn't meet their interpretation of what something should be, it would suck.
Oh,
And the
that's
point is Van Damme got shit on a lot by people saying the
bad
guy
acting.
can't act. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's just a pretty face. He's a lug. And I understand why they say that, but when a lot of people watch it, even if the quality of it's not very good, there's something to it. But I will say this, I think he's a little bit uncomfortable, just like we said about Chuck Norris transitioning from the fighting world to the movie world. You would see him get better. And I think the same thing applies here. This is pretty much his real first outing in a film. So it's definitely a bit unpolished. Um, the guys are kind of all simpletons in that this guy does this guy does that.
Mhm.
Bullion's the guy, he has to cheat. He could just give the crazy looking flex and beat the crap out of him. You know it's going to win. It's predictable. So some people might get turned off by that as well. So I can understand some of the reasons why people say it sucked, but despite all the poor reviews that may seem like they exist out there, I've yet to met anybody that says, "Yeah, I saw Bloodsport and it's horrible." Everyone goes, "Yeah, it was okay," or "It was pretty good," or "Yeah, it was a little different, but I like Kickboxer better," right? And then
I
that would
gotta
be
s-
next year.
Anybody says there's bad acting in either of these movies, well, they need to come if they're still alive. Need to watch TikTok stage thing videos and tell me how bad Jean Claude Van Damme is at acting because
Yeah, and social media bring up a good point. Everybody that brings up all these things here and all that, it's like that's not acting. That's dog shit. And then you realize that even if it's bad acting by Hollywood standards, it's passable for what this type of film is. He doesn't need to be, Lawrence of Arabia or anything like that. All he needs to be exactly what he is. And the part of being successful in the movie is casting. But people did shit on this film as far as all the purists and out there. If it actually had positive press, it might have been a much more bigger hit than what it was.
I
Surprised it, of course.
I would imagine some people also like when you start playing logic to movies, real life logic. Well, why did you do that? You should have done this. That's when those people probably don't tend to like the movies. Like I don't get like that. I just watch over what it is, and I enjoy. I enjoy most movies I watch. unless it's really slow pace and it's world building. I hate world building. If your whole movie is world building, like and there's nothing to it. It's like it's basically it's two pieces of bread with nothing in the middle. It's
Yeah.
it's like going to the store, you buy the bread, but you never eat the sandwich because you never make one because you don't never come home.
Right.
It's
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. It's like I said, it's very good movie, and yeah, you're talking about the as far as I don't know if you're saying this is a very anti-American movie, but you're saying like about how he
I'm
basically
referring to the comment that is there in
okay
chat
yeah
about
yeah
Avatar.
like I said
Very
like
shiny poop.
the probably the negative like I say about Bloodsport is like the whole Frank Duck story. Is it true or whatever? But that, I mean, it doesn't really take apart. It doesn't ruin the movie for me though.
Hmm.
But but it's still there. It's like, is it? It's supposed to be based off a true story. It's like, is it really though? Because if he did, how was he able to get away with this stuff?
Hmm.
Makes you question the logic. And I said that's when you start putting logic to it. It's like, and it undermines what the movie is trying to tell you. It's a bunch of guys kicking ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's same with Die Hard, and like him walking on the glass. There's no way he'd keel over from the pain. After 20 minutes of walking on that, he won't be able to walk anymore. He has so much glass in his and he'd loss of blood, infections on stuff. Even if he did survive, he basically you're dead. You got blood poisoning, bro. Um, yeah, and also, you ever tried running on bare feet?
Oh
Yeah,
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 absolutely.
yeah.
Sand training's a
Oh,
thing, or was a thing.
yeah.
Tried all
Just
that stuff. Yep.
walk on concrete.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Some
yeah,
people claim for sprint training that it'll correct your form and all that too, and you get fast enough, you'll be running on the not the
yeah,
heel of your foot, but the balls of it too. Yeah, I've done all
yeah.
that.
I mean,
Training
I guess.
montages, come on. Yeah, it's like in your DNA, you just automatically like them, no matter what's going on in them.
Yeah.
Now it's time
That
to talk about the bad of Die Hard.
well, that's song was the bad that I heard.
Well, for
If
me,
well, for you, okay.
all right. Um, this movie's got a bunch of long patches in it that don't do anything. I wish the pacing were a bit more tighter. I don't have a problem with the way it set up and it develops, and once the action gets going, it's great. But at the end of the day, it's really just a bunch of loud explosions and gunplay. The coolest stuff is really him figuring things out and seeing, hey, what am I going to do next? And that thrill of what's happening in the moment and how he's responding in decision making. But they 80s-fy it and just kind of make it more about the other stuff. And even though I like him like beating up on a Euro trash guys, he's going to win at the end. And frankly, like I say, the bad guy's pretty lame, kind of boring. So I think it just loses a lot of punch despite it being a very cool film because of Bruce Willis. And here's the other thing about it. We've talked about action movies and we wish that there'd be more of them. There was certainly no telling, in the 80s at this point when Dart came out that they would become even more scarce than they are now. I mean, it's just like, well, God, what happened? So I think people put Die Hard on a pedestal a bit more for whatever reason. And when you look at it, it's a good film. It's a great film. It's fun and all that. But it's to me, if it's on, it's just on. You're like, okay, this is the scene where this is going to happen. This is where he's going to do this. Okay, this is the
Hmm.
scene where he does the bonding talk with the cop. Okay, I just think it's really not that rewatchable. I really don't.
And
It's just sort
yeah.
of like I don't see anything new about it. I don't go, oh, that's why they're doing this. It's very once you get past all that stuff, it's very like one notish, right? It's a great presentation and it's cool. But
Mhm.
again, if you're watching it now or you're relatively younger or going back and checking stuff out, a lot of stuff that I think people thought it made it cool back in the 80s doesn't exist anymore. Like what we talked about,
Yeah.
the 80s vibe, the guy with the cell phone, the big one, and he's down in the basement in the parking garage in the limo, that kind of stuff.
Talking to
People
his girlfriend.
laughed
Yeah.
at like right, and they thought that was kind of cool. Now people are like, yeah, okay, it's limo driver, so what? It's just, you know, it's it sounds
It,
like I'm shitting on it, but we're trying to find out the bad stuff here so we can differentiate between the two. But it's just kind of there. It's not really unique to me.
yeah, like it doesn't hold up as far as time. I mean, for me it does, but I mean, as far as people who first watch it first time, it's like they don't understand why people have because they're always using smartphones.
Yeah,
I,
and
I
that's true too, and it makes it harder to be isolated, right? In a big city, that was kind of cool, but you're right. That is lost on people today. But here's another thing. The biggest thing, if I recall correctly, when you and I reviewed Die Hard a while back, was that the thing that really turns me off the most about this movie is this friggin' wife slash ex-wife or whatever, and the whole thing. And I think I
Yeah.
went on a little bit of a rant about it, about how, well, you just moved, you changed your names, this and that, and they try to disguise it, because of the Japanese culture. And of course, she's
Yeah.
supposed to be, superwoman to the guy that we're really supposed to like, who's not interested in her at all. And it's like, that's like did not seem like a good couple at all to me at all. It's like we didn't really need her in this movie. We just needed a reason for him to be there. It's just I don't know. There's something about that my red flags go up about the way they wrote it. It's like I see what you're trying to do there. Thankfully, you don't shove it down our throats, but she's unwatchable in this. She just makes you hate her,
Ye-
and she does a good job of it. I will say that.
And you could get rid of the wife and just have him be in there as a new security job. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Something, or
you could do
first
that.
day on the job kind of nerves. I don't know, something, whatever. And but
But
this
they
was starting to get very
yeah,
commonplace in the 80s,
like
splitting up the
the,
households and men and women not getting
yeah,
along as
and well,
couples, and it's very obvious in here.
and they would have been, or we just have it where these they weren't going through a separation. You could have done that. You could have done that where they actually he is they're I don't know, they're moving over there. He's going to transfer over there, like, and I think he's like stuck in the mud. You didn't. Is that I didn't care for the kind of like the strained family relationships of. I don't need that stuff. They do that. They're trying to do that crap in comic books again, and I'm like, no. The reason we read comic books or watch movies is to escape how
Yeah,
depressing reality is. I don't need that shit in it. It's called fiction. If I want to watch nonfiction, I don't just want to watch a movie.
right, right.
Yeah, so I said that the wife thing. Yeah, I can see that why people wouldn't like it because of that. But it's, like most movies, though, a lot of movies I just can't rewatch them. They're one and dones for me
Right.
because they're good when I like them, but I go back to watch them again. It's like they kind of lost that magic for the first time watching it.
That's true. And so, like, again, when we talk about I See Dead People, if you go see that movie, you have no idea what's going
Oh,
on. You're like,
oh, the
oh
Sixth
man, this
Sense.
is
Yeah.
cool, right? Yeah, Sixth Sense. But then when you watch it afterwards, you appreciate the artistry of what the guy was trying to do, but the punch is gone. But his shtick is he's going to have a twist with something, and he's going to give you what he says delivers, like the aging movie or this, that, whether you like it or not, or like his
Hmm.
shtick, you're getting something with him. I think here in
Yeah.
Die Hard, you're just like, okay, it's Die Hard here. It's Die Hard on the plane. It's snakes on a plane. It's taken on a train. And,
Yeah.
and it's just regurgitation over and over and over again.
I
And I don't think we're unfairly criticizing Die Hard by saying it's not as rewatchable, or at least me, because I don't know that makes the movie better. We're talking about just as a head to head matchup here.
I mean, coming out together, watching the first time, watching, yeah, sure. But as rewatchability, neither one of these are rewatchability for me. I own both of them.
Yeah.
I have, so it's just that I don't have a desire to go out and watch them. Now, that's the thing. We've talked about this before. There's a movie called The Recruit. I can
Yeah.
watch it over and over again. It just works.
Yeah.
I
I don't
like
know
it.
why, but it is
Yeah,
rewatchable.
yeah. So it's like I said, when it comes as we were talking, I was on East Channel last night. We're talking about the whole thing. It's our top 10 favorite movies. That was my number one because I can just rewatch it over and over again. I just love the setup, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But anyway, uh, going head to head with both these movies, like I said, we got to choose one of these.
Correct.
I'll let you go first, sir. Age Before Beauty.
Beauty before age. That's right. Respect your elders. Otherwise, you don't get a chance, punk. Um, Look, they're both really good movies. We've covered Die Hard. I believe we've covered Bloodsport because we've done a lot of Jean-Claude reviews as well too. Check those out. You're on Extreme Movie Show. Again, if when it comes down to it, you got to pick one of these two movies to throw the other one, never watch it again. I think I think for me the answer is pretty obvious. I have to pick Bloodsport as the winner, and here's why. Part of it's the rewatchability, but when I look at it, there's a bit more of an innocent, fun, positive message to it. Whereas Die Hard, yeah, he's great. He's an American hero. He's a police officer and this and that. There's just something more unique about the way Bloodsport tries to achieve that same message in its own way. And personally, I have a tendency to like films more that deal with the human condition and dealing things, no matter how they come about. Here's a guy trying to find himself, so call it a little bit of the hero's journey, the self-discovery, and all that. You're not getting any of that with Die Hard. You know, he's not a monk trying to find himself. You know, he's got a bitchy pseudo ex-wife, and he gets involved in the situation. So there's just an element to Bloodsport that if I had to pick between these two, and I had to sit down and watch one of these two one more time in my life, it would be Bloodsport out of these two. But they're both great films. I like them both. We just got to pick a winner, right? That's why it's Movie Thunderdome. 2 movies enter, 1
And
leaves. We've had some split decisions, but not all of them. What about you?
well, this will be another split decision because I'm going Die Hard.
Okay.
Die Hard, I just love the explosions. I love the comedy. I love the fact that he's got the crawl through a vent. I've never seen a movie to this day where someone's crawling through a vent. Most of the times we see him as a comedy, the person's getting lost or they can't fit, you know. So I love that, the whole elevator thing. He has to time it just right to get over there and try to hang on to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just the whole thing is like he at this point, if I was John McClane, I want to murder everybody for making me go through this shit.
I know, right?
Right? All to Hans Gruber, like, you know, the you know, it's just like, yeah, he's not a tough villain, but you know, but like I love how John messes with him. It's like, you know, what do you say, Roy Rogers? That's my name.
Yeah. Americans always think they're cowboys. That's right.
Yeah. Like you said, the whole everything is like the elevator scene. He's like, he's got his dead friend. He's like, now I have a machine gun. Oh ho ho! Like it's just,
That's cute.
I love it. And like I
Yeah.
said, him running out through he has to escape the explosion, so he takes the fire hose and swings out and goes and then shoot. You know, hopefully he gets through, crashes through the floor below. And like I said, it's just high octane. I love it. And the fact that it takes place in a skyscraper. Skyscrapers, I've been in before. That is nerve wracking because, you know, and you know, you always think about what happens to this, you know, and then especially after the events of 9/11, all those
It's
people.
its own ecosystem, which is cool.
You are trapped up there. It's like being in a plane or on a boat. You are screwed because there's nowhere to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. So like I said, I just love it, man.
That's cool. I mean, look, normally what happens typically is we do this. We're not saying these are 2 best films. We're not saying Die Hard's the best or Bloodsport. What we're simply saying is there's usually just a couple of short movies that come immediately to mind. Not necessarily the best, whatever, but when people think of a year and you go through all these, like, yeah, this film, this film, oh yeah, Die Hard, right?
Yeah.
Because of the impact it has on you, right? So we try to go, okay, out of those couple of films, what would be like a really good matchup? And sometimes it's a smaller film because it depends on the first film you pick. Everybody saw Die Hard. There's just no doubt about it. Yes, there were tons of films, some that might be better, made more money, whatever, in 1988, but people saw Die Hard and people think of this, and it's also important because it pretty much launched his career. Yes, I mentioned Moonlighting and stuff, and he was even on an episode of Miami Vice too, right? But this is Bruce Willis. When you take Bruce Willis and you have to get rid of everything and leave one thing left, it's not Moonlighting, it's not Sixth Sense, it's Die Hard. I mean, so what do you put up against it? Well, we look for matchups. And so we had a similar one here with JCVD and Bloodsport in a similar situation. This was his breakout role as well. So on the surface, you might look at it and go, what the fuck? But I mean, I just think it was a genius matchup. Some others are out there for other reasons too, but I think this is an interesting one. Very, very interesting battle, and you never know where it's going to go.
Next season in 1988, Oliver and Company versus The Land Before Time.
Yeah, that's why we do this, ladies and gentlemen, because we're just giving you a taste of what's going to come on Sunday night when we talk about 10 films of 1988. Young 20-something Professor Pixel sometimes hasn't even seen 10 films from it. So part of this is his alpha male reprogramming, as I like to joke about him with it. But it's interesting. Like we say, we bring 3 different generations of viewing experience and to this. And so we really appreciate the fact you guys come here, stick around, let other people know we exist and all that too. So I'll hand it over to you, RDV, in case you got to plug anything for tonight.
Not much. Those who follow here probably follow. If you don't follow the Geeky Puppet Show, go over there. There's the ad right there. Just put it under YouTube. We'll be talking about the top 5 comic books come out this week. That is with me and Zach. And then that's pretty much about it.
Do better. That's like people who sign emails best or do best. Let me punch right through the screen and strangle you. Yeah. God, Bruce Willis and Die Hard, if they reboot it, somebody will probably be grabbing coffee and they'll be sending emails out and checking their
Here's
social media. Already, I hate the movie.
so here's what I think. I don't think it'll ever be remade. They tried to do The Rock and it flopped. And then, like I said, you know, and especially a lot of people are, and that was even after kind of iffy because of the whole 9/11 situation with that, with buildings and stuff. Like, I don't think those will ever be made again.
Well, I'm a bit more cynical than you, and hot take.
I mean,
The Rock is not an action star.
Unless The Rock was trying to do the Anna Nicole Smith version called Skyscraper.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Movie Thunderdome 1980. I'm your host, Rob. Thanks for watching, listening. Have a good night, and as always, stay extreme. Good night now.
Later, guys.